Well, we're finally here. It's been delayed over a year. COVID really screwed up the release of this film. But finally, in March of 2022, The Batman found its release. We could get into the whole backstory with who was originally going to be playing Batman, who was going to be doing what, who was directing, who wrote a script for what interpretation of this film. You could look at this for hours on end. But as it stands, Matt Reeves signed on to director. He got to make his own cast in his own universe. And what he made, I honestly think, and this could be somebody, I could get criticism for this, and I will take it. I think he made one of the best films to show why comic books are art. And that is a big proclamation, but if you look at every other big comic book movie, franchise movie that's from a comic book, a superhero flick as these auteur directors would call them, they all have a little bit of a similar flavor to it. And I think in particular, when you're emulating the thing that is popular, I'm not going to get into what the thing that popular is. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe the type of humor you go for, maybe the type of character arc you go on. There is something that has made these characters appealing to mass audiences, that has made this a genre that has outlasted a lot of other genres. And I think what the Batman did was really just be like, we don't have to do that to be good. I'm not saying anything bad about those. There is some good stuff just in like the mass media market that people like and adore. I do like a lot of those films. You know that. But this was the first film, I think, to really say, no, comic books have a fluidity to them. They have an arc, a story that you can encapsulate in one moment. You can just put lightning in a bottle. You can have beautiful aesthetic, beautiful sound work, and capture something poetic and beautiful without having to think about the future or think about the past or do anything else but be in the moment. And I really think maybe since Iron Man 1, the first Hellboy that came out in like 2005, Superman the movie from 1978, this is one of the best films to just depict that type of storytelling. I think this is the best Batman film aside from the 66 one. I will always have a soft spot for Adam West, but going just in terms of like the dark, gritty stuff that makes Batman popular, this does it the best because it actually takes it seriously while still being exactly what a comic book should be for this character. I like my campy Batman. I've always enjoyed a Batman who's a little more silly, a little more friendly. I think this tones the line so perfectly because the world knows who he is. He is comfortable being situated with everything going on in his own world. And there's not this like need to shy away from the Batman aspect of things. This is Batman heavy. It is a Batman story. It is done like a noir film, which is exactly what a Batman story should be, where he's the narrator and he is our POV character. He, of course, should be our POV character, but the fact that he is in every scene, we are following Bruce or Batman in every scene of this film. And that is really important when you're doing a detective story, when you're doing a noir story. We're following Bogey on everything in the Maltese Falcon. We're doing everything in the Third Man. We have to find those right beats to make this work. It's such a good feeling, and it just adds so much to the allure of this. Like the opening, I think, 10 minutes of this film is perfect Batman. It is just this man looking at his city and invoking a sense of fear without actually having to do anything, and that tone stays through to the very end. You see the genius at work in this man who trained himself to become this guy, and it's such a good feeling. It's a detective story. The world's greatest detective. DC Comics is called Detective Comics. We are actually getting an on-screen Batman who's a detective. You can say whatever you will about Keaton or Bale or any of them. They are okay Batman, but this is a detective Batman. He's solving the case. He is thinking it. He's figuring it out. He has help along the way from the people in his life, but this is how Batman behaves. This is how Batman should act and solve the clues. It's really well done, and the pacing is incredible. It's a long film. Could you cut out a few minutes? Probably. I personally don't think you needed to, just because if you are engrossed in the story, I get it, and it works just fine for its length. But yes, not every movie needs to be 3 hours. This one tones the line a little bit where I'm like, you're losing me a bit, but I never fully lose myself in this film. And that's cool. That's great. Now, the best Batman. It's going to be the big topic that everyone's talking about. There's like the Twitter handle going around where Batflex got the GOAT on it because he's the GOAT. He's the worst Batman, I'll just say it now. Robert Pattinson delivers the best performance for a Batman because you really play into the fact that this guy's messed up. Batman is not a normal person. Bruce Wayne does not behave like a normal guy. And while it does toe the line of just like gothic creep really like often, it works for what this story is. This Gotham City would have like the genius playboy become this aloof, messed up guy who's a recluse and hides out in his house all the time with a stupid haircut. He literally just like draws on his floor because who's going to come to his house? He's got a maid and Alfred. Nobody else is coming there, so he can do what he wants, and it's just great to see that mind work. Pattinson is the best Batman. He is the most, I think, just firm in what he's doing. He gets that this character isn't supposed to be cool. He's supposed to be a little unhinged, a little awkward, and a little uncomfortable to be around. He plays that perfectly. He doesn't know how to talk to people. The closest when he gets to Selina, you just feel like the tension is so good there that he's never really had to present himself in that way before. It's a brilliant performance. Honestly, it's his best role. I've liked a lot of Pattinson stuff, but this just really showed you he can commit, and he's not even doing that much. He's just looking uncomfortable, looking like a freak in every scene, and it's such a powerful thing to see. It is so good to see that. And the villain of this piece is none other than Paul Dano, and I adore that guy. He's fantastic, and this was such a good thing. The Riddler could be a point of contention for some people because he doesn't behave Riddler-ish at times. Making Riddler like a Zodiac killer type, it's a smart move, especially when the last like real taste people have is like the show Gotham and from Jim Carrey. That's eccentric and weird. That, I think we're getting there. I think by the end of this film we are getting to that spot, but setting it up that he has this whole plan put in place that's just solving this clues and being like this weird tortured internet troll online who's just very much kind of film bro-y, where he's like, this is how things are supposed to be. Nobody considers the problems of the nice guy. These people always win. It is brilliant and a perfect idea for a modern audience because a lot of people are going to see the Riddler and be like, I believe in him. And they're going to be like, Batman's just a rich white dude beating up the poor. There's some hypocrisy to it, and I think that's such a great way to use it. His caution was terrifying, his actions were terrifying, his voice was terrifying. You actually made the Riddler cool, and that's something that I'm impressed by. And I do actually want to touch on this a little bit. I think Matt Reeves should go into a special category. I don't know what we're going to call it. We're just going to call it can do no wrong with any genre. And I think in terms of like modern directors, there's very few who could do it. Spielberg, James Mangold, I would say Lord and Miller could do it. And I'm going to put Matt Reeves in there because he can make some great war films like he did with the Ape stuff, some great character work like the Ape stuff, and this is a noir film through and through. I cannot get over the camera work and cinematography for this film. I'll be thinking about it forever because it's one of the most beautiful films I have ever seen in recent time. It just knows exactly when to go out of focus and knows exactly what depth of field to use and knows exactly how to like just give you a sense like Gotham is a broken city that is healing, but not healing in the way it should be. It's insane. This Gotham City feels very authentically Gotham. It's not as like dark and decrepit with like old abandoned amusement parks, but it's like this is a place that used to be brilliant and now isn't. And that's a really cool thing to see that we don't get a lot of. You know, Byrne went a little too hard in one direction. Schumacher went too hard in one direction. You got to toy the line a little bit, and Reeves does a great job of toying that line. It's such a beautiful thing to see. But to me, the one thing I cannot forget and the thing I cannot get over is the sound design and the score. The sound design is brilliant. If you can see this film in IMAX, just the audio setup that they have in IMAX theaters perfectly works for this kind of a story and this action. It is loud, it is abrasive, it hurts you, you just feel it so much, and it's such a powerful performance. Just that sound just blares at you, and it just adds so much power to what you're seeing and what you're feeling. But that score, Michael Giacchino, I have said this before, I don't know if I said it on the show, he's going to be the next John Williams, he's going to be the next Hans Zimmer, he's coming up, and he's going to be a name that we all remember as one of the big ones. He's getting there now because he's done a lot of the superhero stuff, but he's getting there. This score was fantastic. Every time that theme for Batman came on, it is better than Danny Elfman's. I'm sorry, it just is. Like, it's just so much more powerful and in your face and just perfectly sets the tone for the fear that this guy is filling into Gotham City. I just adored everything about that. It was so intense and powerful. The lighting was great. There's so much red in here, I just can't get over it. It's just The visuals alone, there's nothing like this. And it's using some of like that green screen tech, or not the green screen technology, just like that photo technology kind of that they use on the Mandalorian. Like a lot of the big sweeping backgrounds and everything are that, like, you know, photo visual technology. That should be the standard now, because it just adds some beautiful depth of field. The way that they went about like actually filming I was reading some tweets about this. I can't remember what it was. It's the same thing that Denis Villeneuve did when he made Dune, where it's like you kind of like go over the actual footage in 35 millimeter, and it just kind of like distorts it to a certain way where it just has that different grainage to it. It's brilliant, and it just adds a little more to that film that makes it distinctive, like it's an art style, because comic books are art. Every page, every panel is a work of art that the creator is making, that the creator is telling us. They should have a visual style as opposed to just the genericness that we see in most other films in this type of trope. That was really cool. And that just made it so much more special. Pattinson was great, Dana was great, Zoe Kravitz, I think she was fantastic. She just had this certain level of charm and charisma to her. I loved the awkward voyeurness just to like the relationship between Selena and Bruce in this. They are two people who clearly have this connection that they are feeling, just being these two maybe like good beacons of light in a city of darkness. We'll get to Gordon in a bit here because he's kind of one with that too. But their chemistry is great. She just plays it perfect, Selena, where it's just like, I can handle my own. I'm going to do this thing. We're going to go here. I did say voyeur a little bit because there's a really cool scene where literally Bruce is looking through Selena's eyes at the world in front of him. And it made me go, that's it. That is such a Batman thing to do that we would never really see before. He watches her a lot. There's some Rear Window vibes going on too of what he's doing. And that just makes me go, of course, Matt Reeves would do a Hitchcock thing when you're talking about Batman, because that makes sense. It's a suspense thriller. That's where you'd go to. That was amazing. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, easily the best one, because he's just Jim. He's just in there being a nice guy, and you see that he is so surprised by the corruptness around him that you're like, this is believable. I get it, and oh, so great. Just the way the relationship between Batman and the police department plays into this story is brilliant, because there's people like, this guy sucks, this guy's great. It's amazing. There's so many great moments we could get into. I'm probably going to do a spoiler discussion at some point to talk about them, because it's amazing. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone is probably the best performance in this film, because Falcone is subtle. Cobblepot's over the top. Falcone is subtle. You see this man, you understand his power, and it is such a good performance. I think I know that's the character you have to start with when you're introducing a new Batman world. The Maronis and the Falcone, you got to start with them, because they are essentially the, you know, like forefathers to what's coming up with all the other insanity in this world. And Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot the Penguin. This is where I'm like, I get why you get him, but it leads into, I think, a greater problem I have with this kind of stuff, where you have a traditionally handsome man, put him in a fat suit and scars, and tell him to act his ass off, where you could get a character actor who's maybe not classically handsome to do the role equally as good and maybe for cheaper but better for their career. This is something we saw in like House of Gucci, where Jared Leto is like, I'm going to put on a fat suit and be bald. I don't like this. I really think you should hire a character actor to do these roles if you're going the outlandish way, just because it's more interesting to me, and I think you're giving somebody a better shot than just saying, here's Colin Farrell in makeup. That sucks. He did good. His performance was fantastic. I wish it was just somebody who actually looks like that in real life, as opposed to a handsome guy wearing a suit. But there's a great car chase involving the Penguin that was actually filmed, like it wasn't, you know, CG or anything. They filmed that scene, and my goodness, is it powerful, and it's invasive, and it gets in your face, and it's loud, and it's great. It's great. It's so great. Like, I cannot stop thinking about the shots in this film, the way the pacing works, the way the reveals work. Like, the clues the Riddler leaves are actually smart. They actually go somewhere. You're actually doing something with that character. The way his plan falls apart, the way the third act actually becomes Batman trying to see like the corruptness of his city and how he can change that, and how is he going to change that. The way he's actually helping people in his city by being there for them. I love it. It's just perfectly a Batman comic book in motion picture. something we rarely see. It feels like we haven't seen this type of Batman. I like the Nolan stuff, but that was just trying too hard to not be a comic book. This is just like, we have visuals to play with, we have certain cues we have to hit, and we're gonna hit them. And it works well. You have a great director who knows what he's doing to establish a world and a larger character. You have actors who are committed to being a part of this world. Like, I think all of them have talked about the comic books they've read for this role. And that's amazing. Like Pattinson, he's talking about Court of Owls he wants to work on. Matt Reeves is talking about Hush he wants to introduce. That stuff's all incredible to see because this is the world that would do it. And it feels like a breath of fresh air just to have these things be said in a Batman world. It's unbelievably cool, unbelievably beautiful. There's never been a Batman film like this, and I don't think we will ever really get there again unless Reeves makes these forever. We'll get a nice trilogy, hopefully, and then we may never see a Batman like this again because it takes balls from Warner Brothers to be like, no, we're going to make a Batman film that's going to be divisive, but the good kind of divisive where people have an expectation for it to be this weird action piece. It's a slow burning thriller about a detective trying to solve a crime maybe his dad messed up in the past that caused the results of the present, where he is the victim in all of this, but he's also the person committing these issues. It is incredibly smart. It is incredibly Batman, and it's just a great film. And I probably will talk about spoilers in another video that we will get to eventually. I do want to end with this. The end, there's no really end credits, but they do have a nice riddle thing at the end there. The end of the movie does set up a larger world. It does it in a way better than a lot of other films have in this genre. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I need to say. So, The Batman. I'm going to give this film a 9 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe. Good luck.